campaigns, great causes, great companies, great political parties constantly reevaluate and refresh their message and their brand. Political success is a direct result of a clear and compelling message. The question is, what is a message? We all know you need to have a good message, but what is a good message? And that's a fundamental question that many campaigns, many candidates, many parties never ask. They go on doing the same thing over and over again. You win, you have success, and you think we just do that again and again. Well, the sign of a losing candidate and a losing party is a party that rests on the past success and doesn't reinvent and rethink the future. So this is a very good meeting you're having. So I thought a lot about the question of what is a message. And so I've broken it down into all its parts to illustrate the sorts of questions and thinking that I think you may want to think about in the coming weeks and months as you think about the party and what its message is going to be. These are the parts of a message. The first question about a message at the end of the day, when you ask what a message is, it's rationale. Message is rationale. What does rationale mean? It means why. Why do you exist? What's the purpose of your party? Why, what is your goal? What are you going to do for the people? Is it just for you? Is it just for all your elected officials to be in power? If that's all it's about, that's not a very good message. That's not a clear rationale. And so most people think that candidates and parties and people have rationale and have thought about it, but quite often they haven't. So my first example to show you today is John Kennedy's brother, Ted Kennedy. He was a United States Senator. He probably would have been president, except he didn't have a rationale to run. He never told the people why he wanted to be president. So he was thinking about running for president. He had a big problem. There was an incident that he was involved in that included alcohol, and a young woman lost her life, and he was driving. He knew that that question would come up when he ran for president. So they had a strategy, and the strategy was to go on television and talk about that incident with a very famous news channel in America, 60 Minutes. And they knew that if they did that, it'd be a big story, it'd be a hard story, but it would be over because all the other journalists would say, they did the tough story, they answered the hard questions, let's move on. It was a good strategy. They did the interview, he answered all the questions perfectly about the incident, but at the end of the interview, the reporter asked very innocently, so, why are you running for president? And it was just an afterthought question. They were turning down the lights on the interview. Here's what happened when he tried to answer that question because he clearly had not thought about it.
Why do you want to be president? Well, were I to make the announcement and to run, the reasons that I would run is because I have a great belief in this country that there's more natural resources than any nation of the world. There's the greatest educated population in the world, the greatest technology of any country in the world, the greatest capacity for innovation in the world, and the greatest political system in the world.
Okay, pathetic, right? Awful. Okay, but not only bad, not only not a good answer, but if you listen to what he said, he's the challenger, right? He's taking on a lot of what Matthew was talking about. He's supposed to be the insurgent taking on the entrenched interest, the incumbent president. But what did he say? He said, well, we have great education, great natural resources, great this, great that. Everything's great. So that was a good message for the guy he was running against, Jimmy Carter. So he articulated a message and a rationale for the guy he was running against, not for himself. and his candidacy collapsed. Now here's a guy who thought about it a little bit more.
Every time I speak about my hope for America, the cynics in Washington roll their eyes. You see, they don't believe we can actually change politics and bring an end to decades of division and deadlock. They don't believe we can limit the power of lobbyists who block our progress, or that we can trust the American people with the truth. And that's why we face the same problems and hear the same promises every 4 years. My experience tells me something very different. In 20 years of public service, I've brought Democrats and Republicans together to solve problems that touch the lives of everyday people. I've taken on the drug and insurance companies and won. I defied the politics of the moment and opposed the war in Iraq before it began. This is Barack Obama. I approve this message to ask you to believe, not just in my ability to bring about real change in Washington. I'm asking you to believe in yours.
Clear, compelling. There's a reason why that guy was elected president. That's a great rationale. And as Matthew was talking about investing in your people, see how he transferred the message to the people who were viewing the message? He said, I believe in your ability to change and to join me. That's a clear, compelling rationale. Great campaigns tell a story. Great parties tell a story. Great businesses tell a story. There's lots of literature about storytelling in our cultures, and movies, and entertainment, but it's also in our politics. Great campaigns tell a story. Now, what do I mean by that? When you tell a story in any campaign and when you're governing, here's how we define it and how you tell a story. You define a threat or an opportunity. Something out there is creating a threat to the people or an opportunity for the people. And you explain what that threat or that opportunity is. You define the threat or the opportunity. If there's no threat or there's no opportunity, then why are you governing? Why are you running? If everything's fine, then there's no rationale. Part of the rationale is to explain why there's an opportunity or where is there a threat. And if there's a threat or an opportunity, where's the villain? Identify a villain. Who is imposing the threat? Who's denying the opportunity? And sometimes it's not a who, it's a what. It might be the opposition governor or president, but it might be bureaucracy. It might be crime. It might be an issue. But there has to be something you're fighting against. There has to be a villain. There has to be a victim. Who's the victim of the denied opportunity or the threat that's being imposed? You have to define who's being hurt or who is not being helped. Okay? Then you identify the hero and the solution, or the solution and the hero. Okay? So you identify a threat and opportunity, identify the villain, identify the victim, provide a solution, establish the hero. Okay? That sounds a little complicated, but here's an example of Ronald Reagan creating a storyline just like that. That's a narrative storyline in just 30 seconds in one of the great American ads that we had. This is called the Bear in the Woods ad, and it features a bear. And this was, everybody who saw this ad understood that the bear was a metaphor. The bear represents the Soviet Union.
There is a bear in the woods. For some people, the bear is easy to see. Others don't see it at all. Some people say the bear is tame. Others say it's vicious and dangerous. Since no one can really be sure who's right, isn't it smart to be as strong as the bear? If there is a bear.
Okay, so it identifies the threat, the Soviet Union. The victim are people, freedom-loving people everywhere. The villain is expanded Soviet aggression. The solution is peace through strength. And the hero is Ronald Reagan. That's a narrative storyline, very simple and well executed. We have to communicate our messages in a very short, brief, clear, crystal manner. And this is very hard for our elected officials because they're all very smart, most of them anyway. and they know a lot, and they want to talk about a lot of things. So when the camera goes on, the lights go on, they want to talk and talk and talk. But when they get on the news, you have a very little bit of time. So you have to be sure that your message is clear in that small frame. Now, as an example of how it's changed, when President Nixon ran for president in 1968 in the United States, the average time he had on the evening news was over a minute. It was 1 minute and 12 seconds. So if he gave a speech or a press conference, he'd be on for 1 minute and 12 seconds. Not much time, but it's enough to communicate a message clearly. In the last campaign with John McCain and Barack Obama, the average amount of time they had on camera, if they had a speech or an event, was 7 seconds. So when we are talking to our candidates or our party, if we want talking to you about having a press conference about your message for the party, we have to sit down and say, okay, you have to say the message in 7 seconds. Now, the reaction to that, as I said, from most smart people is, that's ridiculous. You know, we're talking about very important, substantive stuff, and I'm not going to make this so simple because it deserves more importance. Well, that's a recipe for losing. Winning campaigns learn how to communicate in 7 seconds. And that's what Bill Clinton did in 1992. A colleague of mine was preparing him for his debate, and he asked President, then Governor Clinton, a question about the balance, an issue called the Balanced Budget Amendment at the time. And Clinton started to answer, and he went on for 20 or 25 minutes. And my colleague stopped him finally at 25 minutes. He said, Governor, you don't have 25 minutes. You have 3. You've got to figure out how to say that answer in 3 minutes. And Clinton said, oh, Paul, I can't do that. This is very complicated stuff. I can't talk about that in 3 minutes. And Paul said, okay, fine, then you'll lose, Governor. And Clinton argued back and said, no, it just can't be done, Paul. It's just too complicated. And so Paul pulled out a small Bible from his pocket, and he opened his Bible to the following passage. Okay? This is John 3:16. And he asked Governor Clinton to read that passage out loud. And the governor read it out loud, and then Paul said, and I'll quote him here, he said, there, Governor, in 25 words and 6.8 seconds, St. John listed all the essential elements of Christian theology in 6.8 seconds. I'll break it down for you, Governor. For God, monotheism, not the gods, just God. It took humanity hundreds of thousands of years to come to the conclusion there's only one supreme being. John 3:16 covers that ground in 2 words and a fraction of a second. So loved the world. God is not only singular and supreme, but also benevolent, capable of affection on a global scale. He, God's a guy, we just report it, gave his only begotten Son. Okay, he's got a son, a begotten one at that, and God is willing to ship him to earth as a gift, an enormously complicated concept, fraught with ramifications, but delivered in just 5 words. So that whoever believes in him, having faith in the Son as a prerequisite to what comes next, shall not die, but have everlasting life. That's the payoff. Faith triumphs over everything, even death, and that's why believers call this the good news. Okay? And Clinton said, got it. I got it. I got it. Now this person here on TV, on the screen, is a very famous football player who is he's a Christian, a very heavy Christian. He had just won the national championship of college football in the United States. And you see what's under his eyes? John 3:16. He knew that cameras would be on him. He wanted to send a message to convert people to Christianity. And he knew if he could get them to John 3:16, they would get it in 6.8 seconds. That's clear communication. And then Clinton, of course, went on to become president and one of the all-time great communicators. Emotion. Emotion is key. Get them by the heart. It always beats the head. Okay? In politics, we get very analytical. We get our PowerPoints. We want to explain things to people. We want to convert them intellectually with the power of our intellect. Hit them in the heart. That's where you get them. And so the key is to try and find ways to tell your message with emotion. Tell them with emotion. Find stories to tell. Find stories to tell about people. How does this affect real people? How does this affect their lives? Okay? Here's just some examples of communicating with emotion.
How old are you? 31. What is your rank in the Army? Lieutenant Commander in the Navy. Hit by either missile or any aircraft fire. I'm not sure which. I ejected you. And broke my leg and both arms. And your official number, 624787.
One man sacrificed for his country. One man opposed a flawed strategy in Iraq. One man had the courage to call for change. One man didn't play politics with the truth. One man stands up to the special interests.
Stand up. We're Americans. We're Americans, and we'll never surrender. They will.
One man does what's right, not what's easy. John McCain.
I'm John McCain, and I approve this message.
My wife, Wendy, was murdered by terrorists on September 11th.
The Faulkner's daughter, Ashley, closed up emotionally. But when President George W. Bush came to Lebanon, Ohio, she went to see him, as she had with her mother 4 years before.
He walked toward me, and I said, Mr. President, this young lady lost her mother in the World Trade Center.
He turned around, and he came back, and he said, I know that's hard. Are you all right?
Our president took Ashley in his arms and just embraced her. And it was at that moment that we saw Ashley's eyes fill up with tears.
He's the most powerful man in the world, and all he wants to do is make sure I'm safe, and I'm okay.
What I saw was what I want to see in the heart and in the soul of the man who sits in the highest elected office in our country.
Progress for America Voter Fund is responsible for the content of this message.
Packed with emotion, and by the way, that ad told a story, just as I was relating before. There was a villain, a victim, a threat, a solution, and a hero. Relevancy is key, and sometimes we often forget this important component, relevancy. Why does it matter? Why is it important? This next ad I'm going to show you is the most famous ad in American politics. There's not even a close second. It's totally unanimous. This is the best ad ever made, period. It was made for Lyndon Johnson in the 1964 campaign. It's brilliant and it's powerful in its creative execution, which is what everybody always talks about. But what's not always recognized is the brilliance behind the strategy of this ad. So let me set it up. Johnson's running for president. He's running very well. It's getting later in the campaign. Polls come out, some new polls, that show not only is Johnson going to win, likely to win, but it shows that he's likely to win big, overwhelmingly. Now, most campaigns would have gone and had a party over that news. The Johnson campaign was very smart, and they got together and said, this is a problem. Why is it a problem? Well, all the people who support Lyndon Johnson just got the message that this election's over. And if this election's over, why do I have to go vote? Very smart. They were worried that the message was going to suppress the turnout for Johnson. So they said, we need to make this election more relevant. They said we need to raise the stakes. And they used that line at the end of this ad. They said, the stakes are too high for you to stay home. And they created an ad that basically said, if you elect the other guy, he's going to blow up the world with nuclear bombs. Here it is.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9, 9.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
These are the stakes to make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Okay, the message there, pretty relevant. Vote or die. Okay, that's a powerful message. Vote or die. Okay, so again, because we have limited opportunities when the press is around and reports what we're going to say, we have to make sure that we say our message over and over and over and over again and say it consistently. Here's some examples. The first of a candidate who was not consistent about his message. And the second one features Bill Clinton having learned his lesson about the power of repetition of his message.
It's the right decision to disarm Saddam Hussein, and when the president made the decision, I supported him.
I don't believe the president took us to war as he should have.
The winning of the war was brilliant.
It's the wrong war in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I have always said we may yet even find weapons of mass destruction.
I actually did vote for the $87 billion before I voted against it.
We do not need to build a bridge to the past. We need to build a bridge to the future, and that is what I commit to you to do. Tonight, let us resolve to build that bridge to the 21st century. Let us build the bridge to help our parents raise their children. Let us resolve to build that bridge. I ask all of our fellow citizens to join me and to join you in building that bridge to the 21st century. I want to build the bridge to the 21st century, and all Americans will have the knowledge they need to cross that bridge to the 21st century. Do we want to weaken our bridge to the 21st century? I want to build a bridge to the 21st century. I want to build a bridge to the 21st century. My fellow Americans, if we're going to build that bridge to the 21st century, we have to make our children free. I want to build the bridge to the 21st century. I want to build a bridge to the 21st century. These are the things that we must do to build that bridge to the 21st century. I want to build a bridge to the 21st century. Our bridge to the future must include bridges to other nations. We can only build our bridge to the 21st century, and if we're willing to walk arm in arm across that bridge together. If we want to build that bridge to the 21st century, we have to be willing to say loud and clear, I'm building that bridge to the 21st century. The real choice is whether we will build a bridge to the future or a bridge to the past. Let us commit ourselves this night to rise up and build the bridge we know we ought to build all the way to the 21st century.
Okay, 22 times, one speech. 22 times he said exactly the same thing in one speech. Now, if you're a reporter covering that speech, that's all he said. Clinton wanted that message out, and he made sure he got it out because he didn't say anything else. He said it 22 times. Now, he knew that in the auditorium where he was speaking, it was going to look a little ridiculous, right? But he didn't care because all the people in the auditorium were already for him. They're for him already. But he wanted to make sure the people that weren't in the auditorium, that picked up the newspaper the next day or saw it on the news, would see the message about the 21st century, and by limiting the options to only that, he ensured that his message got on television. That's really good message clarity and repetition. Message discipline is the art of taking a question and making sure that you answer your own message. So you get asked a question, you want to make sure that you take the opportunity to get out what you want to say, not what the reporter wants to hear. And I'm sure some of your elected representatives do this very well, do it in debates. But it's something you have to work on and craft, and it's part of the exercise that you go through to make sure you hone and get clarity on the message. My example for message discipline is not from politics, it's from sports. And that's why I like it, because it's a little different. This features Evander Holyfield, who is a boxer, who has just won the World Championship boxing title against Mike Tyson. Now, after the fight, this is something he's worked for all his life, and a reporter jumps in the ring and wants to interview Holyfield about the fight. But Holyfield has something else he wants to talk about, something he really believes in. He's got a message that he wants people to hear, and it's not about the fight.
That's one of the biggest surprises in boxing I ever had.
Well, you know, I give glory to God, and for everybody to know that you can't choose against God. You can choose against me anytime, but when God involved, Jesus is alive, and He the credit for it, and I thank God. And
why did you guarantee it with such assurance?
Well, because you know, when anytime somebody put God up there, my God's the only true God, and everything must bow to God.
Well, you know, apart from that, apart from religion, because God is here, I hope for all of us. I hope it's just God. Let's get off that. Let's get on to boxing. How did you fight such a brilliant fight?
You know, I'm led by the Spirit of God. And like I told everybody, whatever the Spirit leads me to do, that's what I would do. And it wasn't nothing that so much that I did, and everybody knew that I would wash up. But with God, I'm not washed up.
Did you see him getting tired? Did you think you could take him on at the end?
It wasn't about tired. It was about what the Lord wanted me to do, and each and every round, I went out there and I fought competitive each round. I wasn't giving up anything. I went to the point to take one round at a time, and you know, I realized how competitive he was, and he caught me with a good shot. But yeah, I thank God for allowing me to exalt the shot.
Okay, so he wouldn't get off his message. He wanted to talk about the Lord and how the Lord had guided his life, and he ignored every question that he got. Okay, so those are the fundamentals of message and how we break it down and what we think about. I think those are good exercises for any cause or party or candidate to go through as you're developing your message. It's a good tool to kind of break it down. Think, are we relevant? Are we brief? Do we have a story? Is there a rationale? Is it clear? Is it compelling? Is it repeated? Is it consistent? But after we go through all of that, we sit down and we make sure that we do a lot of preparation. And make sure that all our candidates, everybody who speaks for the party, is well prepared. Because here's what happens when you're not prepared.
You're a big Barack supporter, right, Senator?
I am. Yes, I am.
Well, name some of his legislative accomplishments. No, Senator, I want you to name some of Barack Obama's legislative accomplishments tonight, if you can.
Well, you know, what I will talk about is more about what he's offering the American people.
No, what has he accomplished, sir? You say you support him. Sir, you have to give me his accomplishments. You've supported him for president. You're on national television. Well, name his legislative accomplishments, Barack Obama, sir.
Well, I'm not going to be able to name you specific items of legislative accomplishments.
Can you name anything he's accomplished as a congressman?
No, I'm not going to be able to do that tonight.
Well, that's a problem, isn't it?
Well, well, no, I don't think it is, because I think one of the things that Senator Obama does is he inspires.
Not even the person that's here to speak on behalf of Barack Obama can list his legislative accomplishments. I've worked with Senator Clinton in and around the issue.
But let's talk about.
I want to stop and allow you to have the opportunity to list the accomplishments, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. One of the things that she does, for example, on health care, she offers that and indicates that she's offering a solution.
We're not talking about her accomplishments. You're supposed to be talking about it.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut this off because I've been told to, but Senator, I'm going to give you one more shot. List Barack Obama's accomplishments as a U.S. Senator now.
You co-sponsored a bill requiring the display of the Ten Commandments in the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that important to you?
Well, the Ten Commandments is not a bad thing for people to understand and to respect.
I'm with you.
Where better place could you have something like that than in a judicial building or in a courthouse?
That is a good question. Can you think of any better building to put the Ten Commandments in than in a public building?
No. I think if we were totally without them, we may lose a sense of our direction.
What are the Ten Commandments?
What are all of them? You want me to name them all?
Yeah, please.
Don't murder. Don't lie. Don't steal. I can't name them all.
Congressman, thank you for taking time away from keeping the Sabbath day holy and talking.
Okay, so if you're going to have a message, remember it. Okay? So I want to mention one other piece of this that's actually, I've amended this presentation. It's a little longer, and we had limited time, so I want to do the shorter version. But it relates to another important part of messaging today, which Matthew mentioned, and that's the idea of authenticity. Voters, I think everywhere, are very suspicious of political messages. They're very skeptical. So any way that you can make your message more authentic and real makes it more powerful. And the clip that I have in my other presentation that is an example of authenticity, and this is where I think people today want in their politicians and their parties a sense that they're real, that they understand people's lives, that maybe they share understanding of what people go through. And so they don't want politicians to be perfect. They would rather that they are human, okay? So my example is Hillary Clinton, and I know you remember this. This was a nightmare for a week or two for these guys. It was New Hampshire in the primary when it looked like Barack Obama he won Iowa and he was rolling and everybody thought he was going to win New Hampshire. And then just a day or two before New Hampshire, Hillary Clinton had a press conference about, I don't even remember what the press conference was about, but in the press conference, she kind of broke down and she kind of teared up and she talked about why this fight was worth having and the people that she was fighting for. And she showed a human emotion that she'd never showed before. She wasn't the robot that people had come to see her as, and she won New Hampshire. Now, it's hard to say if there was a direct cause and effect, but it's the only thing that changed, and everybody thought, from the polling, thought Obama was going to win. So that moment of authenticity was very powerful, and is very powerful, I think. So let me just say in general about brand and message, if you try and stand for everything, you stand for nothing. And that's the problem with a lot of parties and a lot of candidates. They want to be everything to everybody. And when you do that, you really don't stand for anything. The Republican brand has suffered a great deal in the United States until recently because they were in power for a long time. And the same thing happens when a lot of parties are in power. They forget their core message. Republicans started spending a lot, which is not part of their core message. And as a result of that and other things, Barack Obama was able to, with a message of change, win the presidency of the United States. Now, things changed very quickly, though. Everybody thought, well, the Democrats are going to be ascendant for decades, just like the Republicans said that in 2000 when George Bush was elected. If you don't really keep a hold of your brand and your message, the other side will take it away. And that's what Obama did, and then that's what the Republicans did to Obama this last election with the help of the Tea Party. The Tea Party has helped bring clarity and focus and energy to the Republicans because they have a clear brand. They're against government overreach and overspending, and they're for constitutional rights. Very simple, very clear. It's a clear, identifiable brand. So thank you for having me. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. Good luck in your future. Thanks very much.